In the eerie stillness of the night, the stage was set for a story that would send shivers down the spines of those who dared to listen. Welcome to Crime Tug, a realm where the darkest tales of human depravity come to life. Today, we unravel the chilling saga of a man who ventured far beyond the realms of ordinary criminality. A man who stood accused of an astonishing 100 murders, yet some inexplicably hailed as a hero. This is the haunting tale of Pedro Rodrigues Filho, a name that struck terror into the hearts of Brazil. Pedro's life seemed destined for the silver screen, a cinematic journey to the abyss of the human soul. But unlike most criminals who shroud their deeds in secrecy, Pedro chose to document his descent into darkness. He knew that infamy was his destiny, and he had no intention of letting others narrate his twisted narrative. His life was a dark odyssey, a serial killer who not only committed heinous crimes, but also captured them on film, a truly unique and chilling case in the annals of true crime history. The genesis of Pedro's grim tale can be traced back to a tragic event that marked the inception of his life. Even before his birth, violence had etched its indelible mark on his existence. His father, in a fit of rage, had brutally attacked his pregnant mother, an act that would set the stage for the horrors to come. Pedro's life commenced on a farm in Santa Rita do Sapuca, nestled in the southern heartland of Minas Gerais. His skull bore the bruise of his father's vicious kick, delivered to his mother's belly during a tumultuous altercation. It was as if his life began drenched in blood and chaos. Pedro's upbringing was characterized by hardship, but it was not devoid of love. His father, a humble school watchman, nurtured him with care, and Pedro reciprocated with deep affection. Yet, the tranquility of their lives would be shattered when Pedro turned 13, an age when innocence often meets the cruel realities of the world. The catalyst for Pedro's descent into darkness was the stolen lunchbox. Food disappeared from the children's meals at his school, triggering an investigation that would unravel the threads of his life. Shockingly, Pedro's own father, the custodian of their school, found himself accused of this petty crime. It was a wrongful accusation that would forever change the course of Pedro's existence, a heart-wrenching tale of love and injustice. As a 13-year-old boy, Pedro was devastated by the false charges against his father. He vehemently believed in his father's innocence, convinced that the true thief still roamed free, while his father became a scapegoat. The order to dismiss Pedro's father came from none other than the vice mayor of their city, a revelation that ignited a smoldering ember of vengeance within young Pedro's heart. In a fit of fury, Pedro confronted the vice mayor, armed with his grandfather's pistol. The streets bore witness to a chilling act of violence as he fired upon the vice mayor outside his own residence. It was Pedro's first taste of vengeance, but the story did not conclude there. After the assassination, Pedro fled the scene, only to plunge deeper into the abyss. His life had embarked on a tragic journey, fueled by revenge, an odyssey marked by wrongful accusations and an unquenchable thirst for retribution. In his newfound life in an unfamiliar city, Pedro found himself ensnared in a web of crime and drugs. The danger lurking in the shadows was not merely the crimes themselves, but the disturbing glorification of violence that accompanied them. It was a phenomenon that raised alarm among experts, who cautioned about the psychological risks of idolizing such malevolent figures. For the impressionable minds that fell prey to this fascination, the consequences could be devastating. As survivors of Pedro's crimes could attest, their stories serving as harrowing reminders of the real-life toll exacted by violence and notoriety. Fame, it seemed, had a dark side, and Pedro Rodrigues Filho's name was now etched into the annals of Brazil's history as one of its most infamous serial killers. Accused of a staggering 100 murders, his story was as strange as it was horrifying, a narrative that blurred the already thin line between infamy and fame. As Pedro continued his descent into the abyss, he crossed paths with a woman named Maria Olympia, affectionately nicknamed Botina. Love blossomed between them, and they began building a life together. They even conceived a child and made plans to marry. But their seemingly idyllic existence was soon shattered when Maria found herself caught in the crossfire of a deadly feud between rival gangs. Tragically, she became a casualty of this brutal underworld, a victim claimed by a rival gang leader's cold-blooded hand. Maria's murder marked a pivotal turning point in Pedro's life, a descent into an even darker abyss. From tragedy to notoriety, Pedro Rodrigues' life spiraled further into the depths of infamy. The loss of their unborn child, nestled within Maria's womb, served as the catalyst for Pedro's growing thirst for vengeance. Pedro's first act of revenge was directed toward his own father, whom he held accountable for the two murders that had forever altered the course of their lives. Yet, a far more sinister revelation awaited Pedro, one that would push him to the brink of insanity. In a chilling twist of fate, Pedro discovered the horrifying truth about his beloved father, the man he had adored all his life. It was a truth too gruesome to bear, a revelation that shattered Pedro's fragile psyche. The father he had revered, the man who had raised him with care, was the very same man responsible for the murder of his mother. This shocking revelation plunged Pedro into a maelstrom of conflicting emotions and unspeakable anguish. One fateful day, chaos erupted within the prison's cold, unforgiving walls. Pedro's father, incarcerated alongside his son, became the victim of a brutal and fatal assault during a riot. His lifeless body bore 22 gruesome wounds, and to add a macabre layer to the horror, his heart had been surgically removed. In a subsequent interview, Pedro made a chilling confession. It was he who had committed this unspeakable act. The reason behind this grotesque act of violence was a twisted form of retribution. Pedro, despite his deep love for his father, could not reconcile the fact that this man, his own flesh and blood, had callously taken the life of his mother. In his eyes, his father had become a heartless monster, and so he took it upon himself to extract his father's heart, cutting it into two pieces. In a horrifying gesture of vengeance, Pedro consumed one half of his father's heart, casting the other aside. Thus, the tragic love story born amidst the shadows of the drug underworld came to a gruesome and heart-wrenching end. Pedro Rodrigues, now Brazil's most notorious serial killer, was accused of a staggering 100 murders, his descent into madness and violence seemingly unstoppable. Even behind bars, Pedro's insatiable thirst for violence knew no bounds. He turned his murderous gaze upon fellow inmates, targeting those accused of murder or rape. In doing so, he added over 40 more victims to his grisly tally. The Brazilian court, left aghast by the enormity of his monstrous